This week's episode of the Red Delta Project podcast, we're going to be sharing the strategy that you can use to make progress in your workouts all year long with as few plateaus as possible. Hello there, my name is Matt Schifferly. I'm the author of books like Smart Bodyweight Training and Fitness Independence. And this, of course, is the Red Delta Project podcast, where I teach you how to break free of the diet and exercise rat race, getting bigger and stronger with calisthenics training, leaner, healthier, and more fit with satisfying healthy eating strategies. So this time of year is usually when the reality is starting to really set in for a lot of people who are working out, if they're still working out when they start at the beginning of the year. We're at the end of January, February is coming on up, and even those who hit the best workout of their life and thought they really had it are starting to realize, wait a minute, the results aren't coming as quickly as they used to, or the workouts are starting to feel a little tedious, boring, or stale. What's going on? What's going wrong? And the reality is nothing is wrong. Because whenever you start any sort of new training program, there's always an initial spark of stimulus that changes your body, how well it can perform. This always happens no matter what you do, but it never lasts forever. Or as the saying goes, everything works, but nothing works forever. So you start off making great progress, kind of like a plane taking off. You get great altitude, but sooner or later you have to level off. And when people start to level off, there's a couple of occurrences that can happen. The first is motivation can tank and the person ends up quitting. And this is because motivation is very much an internal kind of cost to benefit analysis. When the costs remain high and the benefits are going down, basically they start feeling, well, what the heck am I doing this for? I guess I'm not that kind of person who can get in shape. They start telling themselves all the reasons why they can't get the results they want, and they end up quitting. That's the worst case scenario. The other occurrence is people will hit that plateau and get stale and think, well, it's still there. I'm still working hard. It's still satisfying. I'm going to just ride the sucker out and eventually, hopefully, cross my fingers, it'll work out in the end. And this is how people can get stuck in plateaus for weeks, months, hell, even years, putting in an effort, imagining that like a fairy tale ending, like someday it'll all work out somehow magically. That's not a good way to go about it either. And the third occurrence is the individual says, well, things are starting to plateau a little bit. I guess I need to make some changes here. And some people, they subscribe to the idea that change is what prompts a change in the body. So I'm just going to keep changing, that whole muscle guessing theory. If every time I'm in the gym, I'm going to do something different. I'm always doing different workouts and different approaches. And this isn't a terrible strategy. It can be novel, and it can probably work best for those out there who are saying, I don't really care what I get for results. I just need to be in general health and good shape. It's like if you walk into a restaurant and you tell the waiter, I don't care, just bring me food. I'm just hungry. If that's your case, then that strategy can work. But I'm willing to bet that you're not in that camp, that you have specific goals that you want to accomplish. So that's not going to work the best for you, because keeping your body guessing is like being lost in a city. You're just wandering around hoping to get to your end result by chance. Sometimes people will say, well, I'm at this plateau, I guess I need a new program. And that's often by chance as well, because then they start doing research on the internet, they fall down various rabbit holes, maybe paralysis by analysis sits in because they're coming up with a million different opinions. They don't know who to trust. They don't know what they should be doing. And they just end up picking one, crossing their fingers, hoping by blind chance that it's going to work for them or it's better than before. As I've always said, you don't get results by working hard. You don't get results by doing something different. You get results by doing better. So whenever you do make a change, you have to know that what you're changing is somehow still moving you in the right direction towards your goals. And that's what you want to be focusing on. You have this period of like a honeymoon period, everything's going great, and then you start to plateau a little bit. You want to make a change, but you don't want to make a random change. You want to make a change where you know when you're making the change, you want to know what you're doing, and you want to know that it's going to keep you moving in the direction you want to go in. This is where there's this little strategy that comes out called periodization. Now that word in and of itself can be very intimidating because it's usually thrown around in fairly elite circles. Elite strength training, people who train like bodybuilders, elite athletes, that sort of thing. It comes around that. It's usually not issued in average Joe Schmo kind of training, which is one of the reasons why almost nobody ever does this when it comes to general health and fitness. Remember, most people are just trying to get in shape, and their game plan is they're just going to work their way there, which is the worst game plan ever, because you cannot scale hard work indefinitely. Plus, it doesn't really give you much of a direction. It's like turning on a GPS, and GPS says, I don't know, just drive for a while. And if you're not getting anywhere, drive faster and burn more gas. It's the same kind of strategy. You need some sort of a plan to ensure that your efforts are going in the right direction. But I know periodization can be intimidating because it basically means you're planning out your workouts for long periods of time. Like, you'll know what you're doing this winter, not now winter, like next year winter, what you're going to be doing your workouts. And I know a lot of us don't want to be planning out every single day for the next year and a half. So here at the Red Delta Project, we make things real simple. And this is how I like to do it, keeping in mind that periodization is also radically different from one person to the next, just as routines are going to be very different from one person to the next. Some people use periodization plans where things are different based on seasonal approaches. That's what I do. I have a different workout for spring, winter, fall, and summer because my lifestyle and activities are different during those times of year. Some folks, like athletes, it's kind of like they got a natural periodization plan based on their competitive season. So during the off season is when they really hit their conditioning hard and heavy, because that's when they can get ready for it, but they're not doing anything else with their body. So they can really hit the resistance training, really hit the conditioning. In the preseason, they're kind of like holding with that, but now they're in a little bit more of the quote functional training, the explosive stuff, the agility drills, that sort of thing. In season, they're holding steady because most of their energy and effort is going towards competition. Off season, they back off in order to heal and recover from the competitive season. And then they're back into the off season and the cycle continues. Bodybuilders do this a lot because in order to build muscle, you don't want to get stuck in one rep range. That old idea of like there's one optimal rep range for building muscle is pretty much bunk. We now know that you can build muscle through a very wide range of repetitions, everywhere from like just a few reps to 20, 30, hell, maybe even 40 repetitions. As long as you're getting your muscles to a point where they're struggling to work, that's going to help you build muscle. And the best way to do this is to go with a big rep range. So that's why a lot of bodybuilders will say, well, I spend a few weeks working on strength, low rep range. Next one, I'll work kind of in the middle ground, like 8 to 12 reps. And then the next block that I'm working will be higher repetitions. And so you'll hear people say this all the time, like I work on strength, I work on building muscle, then I work on endurance, but this is kind of a little bit misleading. Your muscles don't have any idea what these things are. Muscle doesn't know what strength is, nor does it know what endurance is. It just knows how much tension do you need and how long do you need it for. Those are the only two variables you've got at your disposal for a given single muscle or muscle fiber. So it's not like at one end of the spectrum, you only build endurance, but you'll never build muscle or never build strength. Or you'll build strength, but never endurance. But we've got that idea running through our heads of like, only this rep range builds muscle and the other two don't. That's complete nonsense. No. Everything builds strength, endurance, and muscle, but having the rep range gives you a little bit of emphasis one way or another. So the bodybuilder may have different training blocks for one or the other. But anyway, let's talk practical application. How would you use a periodization plan a little bit? Well, the easiest way to do this is to have 3 or 4 different workouts and you just cycle through them at a given amount of time. 3 weeks, every month, 6 weeks, however you want to plan it. The way I do it is I have my scoreboard progression log, which if you haven't read that ebook yet, there's a link down below here if you're watching on YouTube, or there's a link on the RDP website on this post for this. Or if you can't find it, just email me. I'll email it to you. It's a free book because I use a very simple workout program, a way to track my workouts. Anyway, I have a folder that I keep track of these things in a Google Docs, Google Drive. And that folder is each one. I have 3. I have one that's a little bit bodybuilder-esque, one that's a little bit strength-esque, and one that's a little bit more endurance. So I just cycle from one program to the other every 5 to 6 weeks. So I'll have like one program, and after a while, I'll just go to the next one and then the next one, and I'll just cycle through them. And that way, you have your programs already written. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. And that's one of the reasons why periodization works so well. It's like, oh, I'm at the end of this training block. I know exactly what I'm going to do in my next training block, and you run into it. How long should the training blocks be? Well, it's kind of different for everybody. Like I said, some people it's based on their sports season. So hockey is going to be way different than, like, say, football, because the seasons are different length. Depends if you make the playoffs or not, right? It depends on lifestyle things. Some people could have a training block where they feel like once I do the endurance training block and I only need to be there for a month. And other people are like, yeah, but I need at least 6 weeks in this other training block. It's a lot of experimentation, a lot of personalization. You'll find out a lot by doing it yourself. My general rule of thumb is stay on a training block as long as you're still making progress. It's one of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to training, where they're making progress, things are going great, and then they change everything. It's like, what were you doing? Like, you were already making progress. Why are you messing it up? Because every time you make a change, especially an unscheduled change or a random change, you're rolling the dice and hoping to get something better by pure chance. So have a plan for what you're going to go to. And you can either go by the month, because that's usually an easier way to go about it. It's like new month, new program. You could go every 6 weeks. And if you do something like that, put a little reminder in your calendar on your smartphone. And it just pops up every 6 weeks or 8 weeks and says, okay, time to do your next workout. You can put the date on your workout itself. It says this is good until such a date. That looks like an expiration date on a gallon of milk. Or my plan is you just keep going until you kind of feel like it's getting a little stale. Once it's a little stale, then you go to the next one, and you just keep going around from various ones. So it's not the most complicated way of going about it. I know some people, they literally write out their workouts, what they're doing every single day for an entire year. By all means, go for that. If you feel like going and doing that, just bear in mind that it's probably going to change over time, and you're going to make adjustments. But that's how you make progress all year long, and you avoid being in plateaus for weeks, months, or even years at a time, or getting into these situations where you're just making random changes and hoping to have success by random luck. Figure out what your goal is. Know what do you need to work on. Like, if you want to build muscle, it's like I need low rep, I need medium rep, and I need high rep. Good. And then you have a workout that emphasizes that particular aspect to it. Now, keep in mind that you don't have to exclusively do that type of thing every single week. And one of the biggest reasons why some people they're critical of periodization, because they're like, well, if you're working on one thing, then you're losing everything from the others. Well, a good way to get around this is to say, yes, I spend most of my workouts doing high rep, but I'll do 1 or 2 sets each week of low rep, just to make sure I'm still maintaining some of that strength, just to kind of test it a little bit. And that way you're still getting a little bit of the other things, focusing on that aspect that you have in the other blocks. So if you have questions on this, leave it down below. If you're watching YouTube here, you can always reach me at reddeltaproject@gmail.com. And also, by all means, hit me up at the Instagram as well. You can always leave questions there at the same time as well. So thank you very much for listening. As always, if you find this helpful, please like, share, subscribe. If you're here on iTunes and stuff, please leave a review and a written review, and stars really helps us out, helps us spread it around. Much appreciated, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Till then, be fit, live free.